hope. Good to be with you on this election day. A sample from across the state. Largely, it sounds like voting is going well and smoothly all across the state. We've said it before. We'll say it again. Appreciate all of those election day workers who give of their time to make sure that our elections run smoothly across the state of Mississippi. Few little issues popping up here and there. A reminder that if you have any issues with voting today, you can go to the Secretary of State's website, sos.ms.gov, and you can find the phone number there to call the Secretary of State's office. There are also phone numbers on Secretary of State Watson's website that will direct you to your county or municipal clerks as needed. All right, welcome to the show, Frank Bordeaux. He's chairman of the Mississippi GOP. Frank, good to have you in studio this morning. Thanks for stopping by on what is, I know, a busy day.
Busy day. Glad to be here, Richard.
What are you watching today? I mean, you have had a front row seat for the build-up to this primary. Obviously, the lieutenant governor's race is the headline grabber, but as you look across the entire election day landscape, what are you watching?
Yeah, for the last 3 years, we've worked hard as a party to recruit good candidates up and down ticket. And so we have a lot of really good races all over the state for sheriff, supervisor. Over 1,500 Republicans running. We're excited about that. And I'm excited for tomorrow more than today. Tomorrow I get to go to work and beating Democrats.
There you go. You can prop your feet up, maybe, and take just a minute to enjoy tomorrow as well. It's fascinating to me, and I think this has happened all over the state of Mississippi because of kind of the history of our state and the history of our two-party system. For a long, long time in local races, people felt like they had to run as Democrats if they were going to win, whether you're talking about a supervisor's race or a board of aldermen's race or a sheriff's race or whatever. And it took a really, really long time for that mindset to go away, where you have a lot of these local offices where people are Republicans, but we're running as Democrats to say, no, I'm a Republican and I want Republican by my name on the ballot.
That's right. And we have seen it in this cycle. We've seen entire counties that have switched from the Democrat Party to the Republican Party. And so you're going to see a higher turnout of Republicans, percentage-wise, more than Democrats at a larger scale than we've ever seen in the state, I believe. I think you're going to see a very good turnout. Secretary Watson obviously was on earlier. I think he shares that belief. And I think it's going to send a message to the national Democrats that in November they're going to have their hands full trying to win the election after they see the amount of Republicans that show up compared to Democrats today.
You care to make a prediction on what the turnout numbers end up being?
I do not. I'm not going to go that far. I've heard that I think the secretary has said around 400,000 Republicans. I don't know. We'll see at the end of the day.
Yeah, I talked to some people yesterday who were optimistic that it was going to be in that range, which is significant uptick from 2019, and I think kind of speaks to especially this lieutenant governor's race.
It's definitely the lieutenant governor's race, but keep in mind there are some very heated sheriff races across this state.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because I don't know that the LG race by itself would draw the numbers that we're talking about, regardless of how much money spent or how many ads we see or how important we think it is to the future of the state of Mississippi. I'm not sure that in an off-year election cycle that drives turnout the way some of these local races do. I mean, you mentioned sheriff's races in particular, a really big one in DeSoto County the northwest part of the state. I think a really competitive one in Harrison County as well, and we'll talk more about that later in the show this afternoon. But I don't know if it's just those two places. I think you've got other localized races that really are driving turnout. Do you agree with that sentiment?
No question about it, and that's why we really focused in at the local level, over the past 3-4 years of building our clubs, and we've seen our numbers grow. Our women's clubs have grown exponentially over the course of the past 4 years. And then recruiting and encouraging folks to run on the Republican ticket. If we get those folks running as Republicans for supervisor and sheriff, that's going to change the landscape of the entire state and the turnout of the entire state. And we've seen that, and you're going to see a big turnout because of that, I believe.
Does that make Mississippi more important in national races?
Well, obviously, I think Mississippi is very important in national races, but I think you're going to see the Republican Party continue to grow. And obviously, we're a smaller state, but I think you're going to see a lot of our Republican candidates for president come to Mississippi over the next several months.
Well, and if you took that other than how I intended, I apologize. I guess I think about a Republican candidate for president probably is taking Mississippi for granted because of how the state has voted for so long. And I guess I was kind of thinking if we continue to see the Republican numbers grow in terms of public offices held, primary voter turnout, overall voter turnout, does that maybe cast a little brighter light on the state of Mississippi during a presidential election year than it would otherwise, even though maybe the presidential outcome is what they expect it will be?
I sure hope so. I hope that they want to come here to campaign. I know Mississippi Republicans want them to come here and campaign, and so we're definitely going to encourage that.
What has been your role, Frank, and kind of the Mississippi GOP's role in monitoring the lieutenant governor's race? I mean, obviously it has been a very spirited competition, and that might be putting it mildly. I can sample the C Spire text line and see how passionate people are on both sides of this. So when there is a race that is this hotly contested, how does the state party operate?
You know, we don't pick sides, and I think that we've made it clear in both principles in this race know that we have stayed out of it as state party is concerned. I think we've done a pretty good job of that. Some of their supporters may be upset that we don't say more or do more. But my main role in the lieutenant governor's race is going to be tomorrow, bringing both sides together to win in November.
Got messages still coming in on the C Spire text line. Just voted at the Midway precinct in Oak Grove. Workers are doing a great job, and it's going there smoothly. Gloria in Clinton says, I believe that political races should be based on accomplishments and work done to improve the state. She's got strong opinions on one side or the other. Trying to stay away from that with Frank in here as well. So, depth of candidate pool for the GOP. I mean, you talked about more people at the local level running as Republicans. When you think about the depth of the bench that exists in the party right now, what do you think? I mean, because it looks like there's a lot of opportunity over the next decade or so, and a lot of people who are probably pretty interested in some high offices in the state.
A lot of talk about 2027 already.
Yeah, so, exactly.
We have a really deep bench.
I was trying to tiptoe around that. I wasn't sure exactly how to do it.
Well, there's a lot of folks that aren't tiptoeing around it right now. We have a really deep bench through legislators. We have great mayors out there, and then our statewides. And so 2027 is going to be a tough year for our party, but it's, having good candidates run against each other is not a bad thing. Our party is not one that clears the deck for their candidates of choice like the Democrat Party has done this past year. And so we're going to have debates. We're going to have strong primary campaigns, and 2027 is definitely going to be one of those years that will prove that.
We got more coming up with Frank Bordeaux. He is joining us in studio, chairman of the Mississippi GOP. You can follow him on Twitter if you would like to, at Bordeaux, spell it like the wine. Frank, Bordeaux, Frank, and we'll continue to talk about this primary election day in the Magnolia State. Plenty of opportunity for you to vote. Polls opened about an hour and 15 minutes ago. Got to be in line by 7 o'clock tonight. If there is a line and it's after 7 o'clock, you will be allowed to vote. If there are any irregularities that you see or something that just doesn't feel right, don't be afraid to reach out to the Secretary of State's office. Secretary of State Michael Watson encouraged you to do that earlier today. The elections number for their office is 601-359-1037, 9372. And, of course, you can go to the website sos.ms.gov. Got more with Frank Bordeaux on the other side of this timeout. It's The Gallo Show. Richard Cross in for Paul in the Trustmark Bank Studios. And this is The Gallo Show on SuperTalk Mississippi. Richard Cross in for Paul on this Tuesday morning. It is Election Day, primary election day in the state of Mississippi. And Frank Bordeaux, who's chairman of the Mississippi GOP, is joining us in studio. We thank Frank for his time this morning. Obviously, Frank, the headline-grabbing race is the lieutenant governor's race. But when you look at the ballot, there are a bunch of contested races in the Republican primary, a bunch at the district attorney level, insurance commissioner. I don't know how tight that one's going to be, but that is a contested primary. And then these public service commissioner races have been pretty hotly contested and competitive in both the northern and southern districts. When you look at some of these contested races, give us a little insight as to what you see.
Well, obviously, like we talked about in the lieutenant governor's race, we've stayed out of any primaries, but any of these contested races, and we're keeping an eye on all of them, it's going to be incumbent on the party and at the local level as well as the state level to try to bring back everybody together because we, at the end of the day, we have to remember Republicans are out here to beat the Democrats, and so that's what we're going to be focused on. That's what we've been focused on. Running the primary, staying agnostic as far as picking any side one way or another, and then going out and bringing everybody together after the fact.
I mean, this is kind of the fighting with your brother thing, right? I mean, you grow up and brothers don't always get along and fight like cats and dogs with each other, but don't you dare let somebody else pick on one of you because now you got both of us coming. Is that kind of the right way to classify it?
That is exactly what we hope will happen.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. What is that transition like, though? You mentioned yesterday that tomorrow morning you'll go to the office and you will turn your focus from primaries to trying to win general elections in November. How does that process work for you?
So we're going to dig through the numbers. It's going to be a late night for us at the party. I have to say, our party folks have been at the office since, I think, 5:30 this morning, preparing for today. Tate Lewis, my ED, has done an amazing job of helping run the primary. And then tomorrow we're going to dig through the numbers. We're going to start making phone calls to those that were won and those that didn't win. And we're going to try to encourage everybody to come back together, work together, and win. But one thing that I do know that we've done very successfully, and chairman before me set the groundwork, we have a very good party at a local level, and we have tried to strengthen that. And those folks will be mobilized, and they will go to work and bring in their local parties together. And then, we start working towards November. 3 months away, we're ready to go.
3 months can certainly go by in a hurry. Visiting with Frank Bordeaux, he's the chairman of the Mississippi GOP, the Mississippi Republican Party, in studio with us on Election Day. We'll have him just for a couple more minutes. We got a message a second ago, or a question a second ago on the C Spire text line. I don't know if this is a leading question or if it is a genuine question. Certainly not trying to play gotcha. How do you feel about what has been accomplished at the legislative level with what Thomas and Greenwood describes as a supermajority?
I think our record speaks for itself. If you look at our education gains, if you look at, we said we were going to raise teacher pay raise. We did. We have record revenues. We've cut regulations. We've cut taxes. We have the record in private investment in our state. I think what we've done as a Republican Party is proof of why people are gravitating to the Mississippi Republican Party. Obviously, Joe Biden's a lot of help for Republicans, but I believe that our record over the past 4 years is even larger than Joe Biden's problems nationally. I think Mississippians know that we're winning. As the governor keeps saying, we have, Mississippi has momentum, and I think all Mississippians see that. Whether they identified as a Democrat 2 years ago or 4 years ago, they're seeing their children do better in school. They're seeing their paychecks get larger. We have record unemployment month after month, month after month. And so we have an unbelievable record, and that definitely wasn't a gotcha question. That was a great question. We're going to tout our record over and over and over as a party, and our Republican candidates are going to do that. It's going to be very difficult for state Democrats to attack us on our record over the past 4 years.
Visiting with Frank Bordeaux, chairman of the Mississippi GOP. What's the role that the party plays in policy development and stances for candidates? And the reason why I ask that is, I mean, obviously, if you want to look at the lieutenant governor's race, Chris McDaniel and Delbert Hosemann don't necessarily look at things exactly the same. They both are on the Republican primary ticket, but they have highlighted each other's differences throughout the campaign. If you want to go back to the last gubernatorial election, on the Republican side, I mean, Tate Reeves didn't view things necessarily the same way his predecessor did, or whoever follows him in office will view things. So in terms of shaping policy and viewpoint, there's certainly an individual piece of this that we see that plays out in the legislature and the executive branch. What role does the party play in that? As
long as the policy is within the ideals of our platform, we're going to support it. And look, we're going to have arguments. That's part of being part of the party. Arguments of tax cuts. You know, our arguments weren't, are we going to cut taxes? How big are we going to cut taxes? And so as long as the arguments or the discussion is within our platform, we trust our legislators. We trust the Republican voters in Mississippi to send good folks in supermajorities to the Capitol, and they're going to fight and they're going to discuss and they're going to work hard. At the end of the day, we believe they have come up with good policy.
Can you please tell me the name of the current guest on the show? I missed it earlier. His name is Frank Bordeaux. He's the chairman of the Mississippi GOP and is spending some time with us. How does the party, Frank, view challenges to incumbents in primaries? Obviously, candidates have the right to do that, the ability to do that. I feel like that happens more and with better candidates than maybe it did in past. Is that a function of what you were talking about earlier in terms of the depth of the bench and the quality of candidates that are out there, or is there something else at play?
Well, it's just math. As our party continues to grow and our bench continues to get better and better and larger, there's going to be primary challenges. And so, that's just part of a growing party. We don't view it as a negative thing. And I think it makes our party stronger. Debate definitely makes for a stronger outcome, I believe. And so, it's going to happen. There's nothing I can do to stop it, nor do I want to stop it. But it's going to continue to happen as we grow.
Well, and I guess the flip side of that is the message that we got just a second ago from JB, who says these contested primaries are good for the party and the state. It brings fresh ideas to the table, and incumbents can't just sit back and operate on cruise control. So,
That's right.
So maybe there's something to that.
No doubt. I agree with
you. Yeah. Frank Bordeaux, last thing for you, your encouragement to people all across the state of Mississippi to get out and vote today.
Definitely get out and vote. I don't care if you believe your candidate's going to win by 80%. We still want you to get out and vote. Don't take anything for granted. Our party cannot get complacent, and we have to continue to encourage our friends and neighbors to get out and vote.
I was in an event last night, and that was the overall message, was get out and vote and text people. I don't know that there is anything that is more nerve-wracking than people who are running for office in hoping that they can get their voters out on Election Day.
That's right. I mean, we as a party cannot allow complacency to set in. We have to get out and vote, encourage other folks to get out and vote, and we're going to turn out again in November.
Frank, appreciate your time. I know it's a busy day. Kind of you to spend a couple of segments with us this morning on the Gallo Show. I hope I was easier on you than Paul would have been.
No, I just want to thank SuperTalk for what they do to encourage our voters and to educate our voters. I really appreciate everything SuperTalk stations are doing.
All right. Thanks so much for coming in this morning. Frank Bordeaux, chairman of the Mississippi GOP, visiting with us on Election Day. If you have questions about where you are supposed to vote, once again, I direct you to the Secretary of State's website, sos.ms.gov. You can find